Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is your host, Bruce McGuire. And you are listening to the Columbine Conspiracy Series. This is episode 21. The FBI report deleted files. And yeah, you heard it correctly. We're going to be going over the files that were actually deleted from the original FOIA of the FBI report on Columbine. If you think we've gone over some mind-shocking bombshells before, you haven't seen anything yet. As always, if you find the MindShock podcast interesting and informative, you could donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case, topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. Unless, of course, you are with us here live. Then drop them in the live chat. I'll try to get to all of them. You can also support the channel by becoming a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help logic and reason return to a world where it is quickly going extinct, as evidenced by the countless bootlicking, authority-worshipping, cultist coincidence theorists who get triggered at any notion that Eric Harris or Dylan Klebold didn't act alone here in this particular event. If you're not getting updates on YouTube, there's even a free Patreon tier, and you can get all the updates through there. Yeah, audio issue has been supposedly fixed since the beginning. Okay, so welcome everyone here. Hopefully everybody has listened to the first 20 episodes of mind-shocking content, because we are going to be bringing receipts the like of which have never been brought in this case thus far. I mean, this is complete, irrefutable, empirically verifiable evidence of a mass cover-up conspiracy clearly demonstrating the official narrative is bunk. I mean, perhaps if you're still in single-digit IQ, maybe you find the official narrative convincing. But yeah, this is there's quite a lot here, and we're just getting started. We're just getting started. I mean, it's kind of hard to really wrap your mind around the scope of Columbine. I mean, this really might be the conspiracy that can kind of unravel everything. The Johnny Gosch case as well. There's certain cases that just seem to be in the middle of a web where you start looking at it and you can see how it connects so many other pieces to so many other things. And Columbine supposedly does that as well. I mean, the MK Ultra connections are just absolutely incredible. As soon as we get through these FBI files in this episode, it might take more than one episode, but the next one I'll be going over the most damning evidence of an MK Ultra conspiracy. A lot of goofs get triggered by that one. Alright, so if anybody has any questions, I'll go over those first, and then we'll get right into the deleted FBI files. Actually, you know what? Let's do a little bit of a warm-up here. Let's do a warm-up with this post. I don't know if I've gone over this. I don't know. Did I go over this on the previous episode? I may have, but I don't remember. I've gone over so much now. Let's, okay, let's look at this here. Okay, so there was, I don't know if I went over this, but Okay, so let me go over this Reddit post. Make of it what you will. This is obviously not something that can be corroborated, but just food for thought here in the conspiracy with so many coincidences. I mean, you just don't know where to turn. Everything is a coincidence or anomaly, according to the coincidence theorists, anyway. So here's an interesting comment on the conspiracy subreddit. I posted the AI analysis of the Columbine shooting on MINDSHOCK. Actually, let me double check if I re-uploaded it here to the Bruce McGuire channel. If not, I will get that up tonight. Make sure it's okay, actually, it looks like it is not on. Okay, that'll be up later tonight. But this is what it's referencing. So I fed all the known info into AI for an objective verdict on a likelihood of a cover-up. And a comment here, very interesting comment from Miss Scarlett. I lived there in Colorado during that shooting. I knew one of the cops who arrived on the scene before anybody was killed. He had to take a long leave because he was told not to do anything, not to help, just sit there in his car. Some kids were killed and he had a nervous breakdown. Klebold's family were high-level military and he was on special meds off and on for years, like many military kids, MKUltra programming. I don't know if this individual means Harris, because Harris's father was Air Force. It was planned event using mind-controlled military shooters. Media lied and swept all the facts under the rug, just like with JonBenet Ramsey. And that's another Colorado case that seems to connect to many other cases involving a cabal. Seabass516 says, come on, Bruce, single-digit IQ would be insulting to plants and rocks. They're in the negative or something. Hard to quantify. Do zombies have brain cells? Maybe. Yeah, and it was removed. Yeah, it was. I did screenshot this, but my post, they did remove this from the highly controlled conspiracy subreddit. I'm actually currently on a 30-day ban from the conspiracy subreddit, so they do not like logical examination of certain conspiracies for sure. The controlled opposition, I mean, there seem to be some controlled op infiltrators on the conspiracy subreddit. A lot of stuff gets deleted there. So, okay, that's our warm-up here. Now let's get into the files. So, the FBI forced to release the files under the Freedom of Information Act. However, there were a ton of pages deleted. And we're going to be going over the deleted pages. Now, what's crazy is even the deleted pages are redacted. So something was redacted right at the beginning of documents they never even planned to release. That's kind of curious, isn't it? So for the devout coincidence theorists and authority worshipping cultists, seemingly the people at the top, whoever the string pullers are, they don't even want any of the agencies investigating this case to know any of this stuff. Because these documents were deleted from, I mean, and they were redacted before they were even deleted. I mean, that's kind of curious. That's really curious. Oh, wow. Les Xylophone says we have Miss Jen Small in the chat tonight. And obviously I've gone over her account, one of the most damning accounts that the official, indicting the official narrative is not true. Kiki Keek says, my first channel got deleted for saying videos about the book Program to Kill by Dave McGowan. Yeah, I mean, YouTube does just randomly delete channels as well. I mean, they do that for innocuous channels, random cooking channels. I mean, there's people with completely innocuous channels have gotten them deleted as well. So it's always kind of, maybe they do that on purpose so that way they can point to that and say, see, it's not because of any kind of conspiratorial content. So, yeah, obviously, Jen Small can chime in at any point with anything on any thoughts, and we can go back and forth with that. But in the meantime, I will be going over all of the documentation here in the deleted FBI files. Actually, one more thing, because this kind of gets forgotten about while we're on the subject of crazy conspiracies. Now, this obviously CNN removed this from their site, but this was posted December 6, 2001. Still on Wayback Machine. One of the two teenage gunmen who killed 12 other students and a teacher before killing themselves in '99 attack on Columbine High School described their plan in detail in his journals and said if they could not get out of the country after the attack, they would hijack a plane and crash it into New York City. Eric Harris, 18, outlined his plans a year before he and 17-year-old Klebold carried out the April '99 attack. The entries quoted are here verbatim, including numerous misspellings, although obscenities have been edited. If by some weird as expletive luck my and V survive and escape, we will move to some island somewhere, or maybe Mexico, New Zealand, or some exotic, these are high school students, supposedly pretty intelligent, or some exotic place where Americans can't get us. If there isn't such a place, then we will hijack a hell of a lot of bombs and crash a plane into New York City with us inside, ironing away as we go down, Harris wrote. So, quite curious. Quite curious. Hijack and crash a plane into New York City, writing about this 98, 99. Interesting, to say the least. Now, for those that believe there is some kind of MK Ultra component, does part of the MK Ultra programming expose the victims to other plans going on? Like some kind of meta cross static interference? Like, let's say if Eric Harris really was MK Ultra at Plattsburgh Air Force Base, which is where his father was stationed in New York State prior to moving to Colorado, like, who was in the next room, or what kind of equipment were they using for the MK Ultra brainwashing? Are there other MK Ultra programs involving 9/11 as well, and he picked something up and that got into his subconscious? Jennifer Thompson in the chat says, I just want people to know my last name has changed. Jen Small is now Jennifer Thompson. Johnny Appleseed says, LOL, Field and Love got banned. One of the best conspiracy channels ever. Rest in peace. Seabass says, I lost 3 to 5 accounts for exposing child R-word codes on Reddit. Did you know the Disney princess movies are codes? Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, and stuff like that are codes in the child R-word communities. That's pretty sick. Jennifer Thompson's in the chat saying, I agree that MK Ultra is responsible for what happened at my school on April 20th, 1999. So I'm going to start going through the documents now. So let's go to Exhibit A here. And I've highlighted in red what we're going to go over here. Now, the organization of these documents are pretty bad. So, I mean, whatever this chicken scratch is here, so this is however you want to organize this document. Okay, so those are the numbers here. Okay, so let's go through this document. Redacted white female, born redacted of redacted Tulsa, Oklahoma. Social security number redacted, telephone number redacted. Contacted this agent in reference to the listed matter. After being advised of the identity of the interviewing agent and nature of the interview, she provided the following information. On April 19th, 1999, approximately 10 p.m., Redacted was logged onto her internet server. And again, just keep in mind, these are the files the FBI deleted from the FOIA. So we'll be going over the motivations on why they did not want these files released. Furthermore, they were already redacted. So whoever the string pullers at the top are, these documents were already redacted and still not released. Les Xylophone says, I believe Dwayne Fusilier continued Eric's brainwashing. The Ant1747 says, I still think back to the transcript from Eric Harris, I believe in one of those infamous basement tapes where it was a few days before the incident. He said he didn't want to do it but had no choice. Yeah, there's actually, after we go over the FBI files, whether this takes 1 or 2 or 3 episodes, the episode after that, I'm going to go through all of the MK Ultra stuff. So, at 10 p.m., April 19th, so, this is the night before, mere hours. This is mere hours before the shooting. So, Redacted is logged on America Online, believes that she logged in under the screen name Redacted. Redacted entered a chat room under the name Redacted, which she often visits, called Bob Onyart Live. And I need to do an episode in the JonBenet Ramsey series on Bob Onyart, because this guy has been named as a suspect, and this guy's also the center of quite a lot of conspiracies. So, Redacted describes this chat room as conservative and right-wing. While in Bob Onyart Live, Redacted had an electronic conversation with 2 screen names. One of the screen names was Redacted, which is a screen name which Redacted recognized and has talked to previously. The second screen name was Redacted, which is not a familiar screen name to Redacted, to the individual here. During the course of the conversation, Redacted made statements to the effect of something bad was going to happen in Colorado or North Carolina, April 20th, 99. Now, what is interesting about this statement? So, we've been talking about how supposedly this was supposed to be some coordinated attack. And all over the country. And I've gone over this in an entire episode where I went over all of the events that happened, all of the shootings before and after the 20th, and the early rumors that this was all, there was some kind of online, there was an online chat room, and this was nationwide. And just a quick recap, Robin Anderson, document 10,635 here. She said here, when asked who devised the label Trenchcoat Mafia, Robin Anderson replied that initially she believed that Chris Morris attended a meeting some time ago to represent the Trenchcoat Mafia for their induction into this national organization. She then stated no one else from Columbine attended the national level meeting, at the name Trenchcoat Mafia was just adopted by that group at her school. And look at this. This is one of the largest redactions in all of the documents. I mean, we could, this gigantic block of text is redacted. Normally, they just redact names or locations. They redacted multiple sentences here so that nobody could even try to guess the context. And this is one of the craziest things, because not only is she stating, and did they mean to redact this entire paragraph and they just only redacted the middle? Because this is one of the only mentions to a national organization. So there's a lot backing up this theory that this is some kind of a national organization. And again, if this is some kind of MK Ultra operation where they're psyoping individuals, students everywhere, and this was supposed to all be much worse. Yeah, let me put the map on screen here of all of the... And of course, YouTube's getting a little glitchy. Doesn't like episodes like this. Hold on a second here. It's not letting me put up. Give me a second here. Okay, I got it. Alright, so here is the map of all of the incidents nationally at approximately the same time. Now, keep in mind here, look at Michigan. Look at Michigan here. With multiple incidents, just a little bit of foreshadowing here, what we're going to go over in the documents. And then also locally in the Colorado area. And then, of course, you have North Carolina as well here. So the warnings of North Carolina. And then Michigan's also going to come into play. And then also, so this is what was going on locally. Look at all the high schools locally. I mean, just wild. Just the amount here. So document 18,154, Brianna Cass overheard conversation in class where Jordana Spavin was telling other students that she knows everyone involved at Columbine. And there is much more to come. This is definitely not over. Every 13 days there will be another school. Chatfield is next, then Dakota Ridge. And lo and behold, both Chatfield and Dakota Ridge had some kind of at least phone calls, bomb threats, warnings, and there's also the diversionary bombs. I mean, there's just so many questions here about all of these issues. And then again, nationally, look at this. I mean, this is just astounding. The amount of bomb threats, shootings, or thwarted shootings, or online activity involving all of these areas. We had Michigan, North Carolina, and Virginia had quite a few as well. Obviously, close to D.C. I'll let the viewers make their own conclusions on whether or not it's suspicious or not. All right, let's get back to this document here. So, something bad was going to happen, Colorado or North Carolina. So they were already discussing both Colorado and North Carolina the night before. Redacted further made references to the Holocaust, Adolf Hitler's birthday, and a fire. Toward the end of the conversation, Redacted stated to Redacted, keep your eyes open. April 20th, 99, approximately 10 p.m., Redacted logged into AOL, entered the chat room, Bob Onyart Live. Once again, Redacted was in the room and was referring to him or herself as the mole, and that he or she had to go back under. Redacted frequently visits the chat room Bob Onyart Live, and Redacted believes that Redacted is a 17-year-old boy, possibly from Colorado. I don't know what led her or him to believe that. Who is Redacted? So it says white female. Okay, so it's her. So for whatever reason, she believes it's a 17-year-old boy. But either way, this mole has to go back under, and this mole said that something bad was going to happen, Colorado or North Carolina. Very interesting. Very, very interesting here. Les Xylophone says they still live in Colorado as well, like they are kept here to keep it quiet. Eric says, wow, that's so many. Yeah, check out the episode, The Inner Ring. I go over each. I actually spend time going over each and every one of those incidents. So check that out. Obviously, MINDSHOCK, the most comprehensive, exhaustive coverage of cases. Les Oliphone says, well, Perry lives or lived up the street from the Aurora Theater when that happened. Holmes called into Sue Klebold's suicide hotline, and the call was dropped after 9 seconds. Wow. All right, well, again, as we're going over these documents, let's keep in mind these are the documents the FBI did not want to release, even when forced to by FOIA. All right, let's go to the next exhibit here. I mean, brace yourselves. Brace yourselves. I mean, this one is huge. So, however you want to identify this document here, all these scribbles, yeah, that's the receipt. Okay, so we have, and pay attention to the header here. So this is just a standard header, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and standard header here, because there's something big's gonna happen. Something big is going to happen in some of these other documents, so just pay attention to all of these documents as they come in. So here we have the synopsis. Information is provided regarding a website that is affiliated with subjects of high school shootings in Littleton, Colorado. 4/20/91, so I'm sure that's a typo. Administrative info is provided by Redacted from Oklahoma City during a telephone conversation with the duty agent. 4/21/99. The writer immediately contacted the Littleton, Colorado command post with this info. Redacted white male telephonically contacted the duty agent following in reference to the high school shootings. He stated his son found an underground website on the internet which he believed was being used by a group across the nation, which was affiliated with the subjects responsible for the shootings in Littleton, Colorado. The website can be found at www.d0x.com. Now, that website has changed many times over the years, and even the archives do not have it from back then. The earliest archives you can find are some kind of a book, audiobook, or book club blog or something. I mean, it's changed. I mean, maybe it's still used as some kind of code, but I mean, it seems innocuous. And I could not find an archive. To my knowledge, no archive exists of what that website looked like in 1999. So again here, we have, and this is specifically files the FBI did not want anyone to see. Why is that? I mean, how many references to a national organization do we have to go over? I mean, there's just so many. I mean, all the way up to Canada, actually. There were a few incidents in Toronto here. May 4th, 1999. I mean, all the way up in Canada. I mean, how, just the reach here. Kiki says, I think that one scribble says gag. It's either gag or page 9 or jag. I mean, I have no idea what kind of scribble that is. But yeah, so I mean, how many references do we have here? And keep in mind, these are the files the FBI did not want anybody to see. I mean, this is crazy stuff here. Mind-shocking revelations, and we're just getting started here. We are just getting started. The domain name was registered through Internic to Redacted, his son indicated as a hacker name, and Redacted also a hacker. So there's two hackers in Fort Lauderdale, Florida? And there was an incident in Palm Beach, May 16th, 1999. I think that was the prom incident with some kind of bomb. I'm not sure that's related to any of the... Oh, wait, there is Fort Lauderdale, April 21st, 99. Or is that the following day? Okay, wow. I don't know if anybody's made this connection before. So the website claiming there's some kind of national organization is registered to computer hackers in Fort Lauderdale, and there is some kind of event in Fort Lauderdale. Okay, let me bring up the entire episode and see what we could find, what happened in Fort Lauderdale. Reports like this. I mean, here's another one. May 16th, 1999. Quote, real nasty bomb was discovered Saturday at the entrance to a ballroom at the Sheraton Hotel in West Palm Beach, where hundreds of students were arriving for their high school prom. The pipe bomb was filled with nails and other debris that could have inflicted serious injury had it gone off. May 19th, 1999. South Junior High, Anaheim, California. Action to Columbine. I am not claiming there is. This is, of course, MINDSHOCK. I do not claim anything is true or untrue. The motto here is, of course, the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. But is it a curiosity that out of all the days in the year, April 20th just happens to be the day that Bluebird was launched? What are the chances that, these dozen or more serious attacks with plans, master keys, bomb making around Columbine, it's all coincidental? What is this? What is this? April 21st, 1999. Daryl Wayne Harris stabbed Robert Menendez during a satanic ritual, part of a group of 30 to 40 Satanists in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The ritualism provided the context under which the borderline was approached and then crossed into frank criminality. It is inevitable that the conclusion be reached that were it not for the ambiance with its implicit endorsement of deviance and its appeal to the blood senses, there would have been no criminal assault. If these two unstable young people were not indulging in blood rituals, it is more likely they could have continued to socialize without one going into a spasm of violence and trying to cut the other to pieces. The victim thought he was involved in one level activity and became an unwilling participant in another. Broward County Assistant State Attorney Alex Aurelia told ABCNews.com. It's an interesting name, Daryl Wayne Harris, April 21st, 1999, satanic ritual in Florida. There's Star Diego also put up this other incident, April 15th, 99, seemingly unrelated. LDS Church Family History Library, Salt Lake City, frank criminality. Okay, I'm gonna get the receipt on the screen in a second on this for those that think it's made up. But this is kind of insane. So, the city where two hackers registered a website where supposedly a national trenchcoat mafia is launching attacks, that the following day in that very city, there's a satanic ritual stabbing, and obviously Satanism connected quite heavily to Columbine. I did a whole episode on that as well, if you guys haven't checked that out. But look at here's the receipt here for the coincidence theorists. So this is, one second. YouTube always gets wonky on these types of episodes. I mean, random episodes where we're talking about other stuff, not so much. But on these, everything always takes 10 times longer. But, okay. Here we go. Okay. Finally. Okay. So this is South Florida Sun Sentinel here. Look at this receipt here. Satanic ritual ends in stabbing. Teenager will be arraigned for what police say was a satanic ritual that became a stabbing attack in Fort Lauderdale. Daryl Wayne Harris, 17 years old, is charged as an adult and is being held without bond. Okay. And he stabbed a 22-year-old known as named Robert Menendez. Okay. So this archive is from May 28th, 99, but the stabbing occurred. Let me get a verification on the date. Okay, so I found another article here, a little bit more information. So this is Tampa Bay Times Police charge teen as an adult in ritual stabbing. And of course, all the goofs pretend satanic ritual abuse doesn't even exist. But, I mean, okay. So, published May 29th, 99. 17-year-old has been charged as an adult with attempted first-degree murder and a stabbing attack that stemmed from a satanic ritual, police said. Police said Daryl Wayne Harris stabbed Robert Menendez 4 to 6 times in the throat with a carving knife after a ritual in which they cut their hands to let their blood mingle and chanted lines from a satanic book together. As they were chanting on April 21st, Menendez says they drew a pentagram in the dirt. Harris told Menendez to look at the symbol. As Menendez looked down, Harris attacked him with a knife. Harris's girlfriend and an unidentified male witnessed the attack. Left for dead, Menendez, 22, crawled. Man, this guy got stabbed in the throat 4 to 6 times and crawled to a nearby area to get help, was hospitalized Browner General Medical Center for several days. Did he survive or not? Harris and Menendez were part of a network of 30 to 40 local young people who were involved in satanic activities, police said. So all the clueless goofs, all the goof coincidence theorists hallucinating that there's no such thing as satanic ritual abuse or any of this stuff. I mean, the receipts are endless. I mean, I did a whole, 9-hour podcast on documented, prosecuted satanic ritual abuse cases, many of which there's actual video evidence. But anyway, so this is happening. This is all happening hours after Columbine. That's interesting. This is kind of weird. So, there's 2 hackers based in Fort Lauderdale where this satanic ritual stabbing occurs mere hours after Columbine. Coincidentally, the domain name is registered in Fort Lauderdale. Now, it's going to get even crazier here. I mean, the coincidence stack is already so stratospheric. I mean, this is too much. Even for MINDSHOCK, this is too much. Eric says Wayne Harris is Eric's dad's name. Yeah, it's going to get a little crazier, too. So, okay. Redacted stated his son observed numerous gruesome images on the website, including a photo of a dead body with a weapon beside it. He also found a Word version 8 document, which he could only read portions of the document due to the fact that it was either encrypted or was not compatible with his version of software. He believed this document may have useful information on it, saved a copy of the writer's request in the event it is taken off the website. Portions of the readable text from the document provide what appeared to be bomb-making instructions, which he believed were excerpts from the Anarchist Cookbook published on the internet. Also legible in the document was the statement, quote, "I did not try this on the Delta batch, am sure they won't be used until NBK." Now, NBK is, that kind of references the movie Natural Born Killers, which Klebold and Harris liked, but they also gave the event of the shooting the name NBK. So on this document, on a website, domain registered Fort Lauderdale, which mere hours later there's some kind of satanic ritual stabbing. They're saying Delta batch. I mean, Delta batch, that sounds like MK Ultra nomenclature. But if they're discussing bomb making, perhaps Harris named the bombs the Delta batch. Redacted believed this was possibly another event yet to take place by the group. His son suspected the initials NBK may have been an acronym for some German holiday, although he stated that was pure speculation. He had heard on the internet that the date of the shooting was Hitler's birthday and focused on special dates in German history. Okay, boom. Look at this. They also found a name on the website which they reasoned based on name recognition only that could be a relative or alias of one of the subjects in the shooting. The name with an associated address was Wayne N. Harris, Littleton, Colorado. Now, there is an obituary listing for Wayne. Wait, this is not Wayne N. Harris. There's actually a number of Wayne N. Harrises. Yeah, actually, Wayne N. Harris is his father. There's a few different, there's quite a few references here to Wayne N. Harris. So this, the Denver Post has stated that Wayne N. Harris is the person mentioned in this document. So, okay. And also, of course, Wayne Harris involved in the satanic ritual stabbing. I mean, this, I mean, the amount of coincidences in here is insane. Redacted stated someone involved in maintaining the website was updating it hourly. He observed a message on the site prior to noticing the changes every hour. Bring your guns to school today, 4/21/99. He also observed photographs of the two subjects from the shooting in Littleton, which had the captions above them, "These are our comrades." Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of documents here the FBI did not want anybody to see for whatever reason. Seabass says the document mentions the Delta Project, where the CIA trained and protected serial killers like Dahmer and Gacy. Yeah, I don't know if Delta Batch won't be used until NBK. Yeah, I don't know. But Delta, yeah, I mean, obviously Delta's military moniker. Yeah, this is very, very strange stuff. Is Jen still here? Because there's something coming up here specific to her sighting as well of the blonde-haired individual. We'll get to that in a moment. Got some more documents here to go over, however. Quite damning stuff. I mean, what is the coincidence of Fort Lauderdale? That's where this website regarding a national trenchcoat mafia? I mean, it's just so crazy. And what, there's approximately 30,000 cities in the United States for all the goofs that say. I mean, if there's only 5 cities in the U.S., then yeah, you could say, oh, okay, that's coincidence. You're talking over 30,000. I mean, that's kind of a massive coincidence. Okay, so let's go to the next document here. What does this circled X mean? And this gibberish underneath it, that's interesting as well. This look kind of, I don't know if, is that gag or is that a page number? There's also this file number here. Its contents are not to be distributed outside your agency. So even these documents for whatever agency, they're already redacted and not to be circulated. Very curious. So let's look at this. At approximately 10:35 a.m., April 24th, 99, at the Denver Federal Bureau of Investigation office, positively identified, redacted, positively ID'd, redacted from a physical surveillance videotape. This physical surveillance was conducted at redacted. April 23rd, 99. So how many people did they have under surveillance? So did they know that there were multiple shooters? Redacted was unable to identify a white male and a white female observed with redacted on the videotape. Redacted attorney redacted was present when redacted identified redacted from the videotape. The original physical surveillance of redacted is attached. Okay. So, what can we deduce from this? They really didn't want this document out there. So they're surveying people, and there's a white male and a white female with redacted, whoever they're surveying, and they're unidentified. Who are these people, and what is this relation? What is this relation to? Seabass says, I think it's gag, like a note to put a gag order on it. Yeah, maybe. I wonder what the circled X means, because we're going to get to another document which is really weird in a moment. Oh, Seabass says perhaps also about the Delta brainwave. Yeah, within MKUltra programming, that's very possible. Oh, Jen's still here. Okay, yeah, I'm going to get to something really interesting in a moment, Jen. Also, actually, yeah, I'm trying to figure out the order here. Let me bring, because and one of the reasons I'm going over these documents is because nobody knows what it's. I don't think anybody knows what that's in relation to. All we know is that the FBI didn't want it out there, so they're surveying multiple people after Columbine. Why? How many people do they have under surveillance, and why? Okay, yeah, we're gonna get to. Okay, we're almost there. I got 3 more documents, and then I'm gonna briefly go over Jen's account, and then she can chime in on the accuracy of it, and then we're going to go over a deleted file that has a possible connection to it, which is pretty wild. This one's also MINDSHOCK. I hope everybody's sitting down for this one. All right, it says total page 2. Okay, I guess that's the page just of this report, not the... So the document we have here, we have no document number unless that's a scribble there. So this is simply a deleted page. Okay. Hope everybody's sitting down for this one. So check this out here. So we have here redacted, advised, home address redacted. Okay. Redacted operates a barber shop at Redacted, New York. Redacted advised that on this past St. Patrick's Day, he cut the hair of 2 individuals that fit the description of the captioned individuals. One individual identified himself as Eric, the other as Dylan. During conversation, the individual identified as Eric stated that they were from the Denver area. A third individual, approximately 13 years old, was with the individuals known as Eric and Dylan. All 3 were wearing black baggy jeans and chains hanging from their front pocket. Redacted reported this incident after seeing the photographs of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold in the newspaper. So you have a barber who said that Eric and Dylan Harris came in on St. Patrick's Day. They said they're from Denver. Oh, wow. Jen in the chat says, I was definitely watched. My mom and I are sure our phone was tapped for years afterwards. Wow, that's really creepy. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of funny business with that. Give me a second here. Let me double check something else. Here. Okay. So, okay. So, what could this be? Is it possible that 2 guys who just happen to look like Eric and Dylan from the Denver area but are not Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold went to a barber shop on St. Patrick's Day 1999? So that was March 17th. That was Wednesday, March 17th in 1999. So how could it, I mean, were Eric and Dylan's whereabouts accounted for on that particular day? Because you do have Robin Anderson traveling, supposedly Chris Morris traveling all over across the country. I mean, that's kind of weird. And okay, so it might not be a 13-year-old with them. He said it was someone who looked 13. So it could be somebody, possibly their age just looks a lot younger. We don't really know. And why would the FBI not want this information out there? Because if it's really just a misidentification, right? I mean, there's plenty of random stuff in the released documents that has nothing to do with anything. Yeah, it says a third individual approximately 13 years old. So that's just the barber's opinion that he was approximately 13. But yeah, so obviously Dylan is really tall. I mean, Eric's not super short either, but whoever else was with them must have been a bit shorter for him to think that he was 13. But yeah, so not only do we have to think about what is this, but why did the FBI not release this? So if this is true and they had some kind of MK Ultra brainwashing trip to New York in the middle of a school week, unless that was their spring break, Jen, you probably really hard to remember. The Columbine spring break in 1999 didn't happen to be the week of St. Patrick's Day, was it? I don't think it is. Aren't they usually in April, somewhere around there, or end of March? So St. Patrick's Day in 1999 was March 17th, Wednesday, smack dab in the middle of the week. So I don't believe anybody has even claimed that Eric and Dylan took a random trip to New York. And even if they did, why would they go to a barber shop? Is that common? Now, personally, I've never gone to a barber shop. So if it was the second or third week, that might have overlapped. Who knows? Let's out of fun. Who knows what Eric and Dylan did over spring break? Who goes to a barber shop? I mean, I've never gone to a barber shop on vacation. Is that a thing? I don't believe anybody is claiming that Eric and Dylan went to New York on spring break. Let me try to find out. Let's see what I can find. Yeah, I can't find too much on that. Yeah, I can't find too much on that. Jen said, I cut my hair in D.C. when I left Littleton to get away from the hub around the school after the shooting. I lived right across the street. Yeah, so I mean this is an interesting point because not only is this just super random, but why did the FBI not want to release this? Because if they really did take a trip for some MK Ultra brainwashing, then it would make sense that they wouldn't want this document released because this document shows that they were in New York. Unless the barber mis-ID'd them, in which case, what would be the problem with releasing that why would they hold that document back if it was just a misidentification? Alright, let's get even crazier here. And again, this document is an X with a circle, and we'll see what that means here. Is this also whatever document ID this is? I don't know what this means, but okay. So here we have this document, Dear FBI. It was like a personal letter. We are all shocked and saddened by the recent events, which might be referred to by some as the Denver Massacre. If you are at liberty to pursue the lead that I'm about to give you, you might find it to be a good one. It was said on one of the TV networks that there were individuals at the crime scene without masks and trench coats that were instead dressed in camo military garb. According to the story, they were handcuffed and detained but not arrested. My impressions here is that they were not students. I'm assuming he's referring to the splatterpunks, unless he's not. They were not students, were related to the students in the trenchcoat clique, were orchestrating the massacre, and might have falsely claimed that they were law enforcement personnel in order to be released. See, this might be a different group. Now, this is curious, because if there was another group of individuals who were in camo, possibly doing some kind of psychological, not just psychological operation, but some kind of covert op involved in the shooting. Now, this is a theory, a hunch, if you will. If these individuals could be interviewed again and gently persuaded to disclose whatever knowledge they possess of this terrible tragedy, my theory could be verified or falsified, and you would be a step further in your attempt to solve the case with a sincere desire to assist you in making this country a safer place to live. I now close. Yours sincerely, a concerned citizen. So this is also interesting. Why would the FBI hold this back if he was only referring to the splatterpunks? Jen says, I know who was apprehended and let go. They were in the field in camo in Clement Park. That's the splatterpunks, right? I'll put their image on the screen in a second. He might be talking about different individuals, which I'm going to get to in a second. Are these the guys? I mean, it actually doesn't even look like they're wearing camo, though. One of them might have camo pants. Are these the guys you're talking about? The splatterpunks? I went over them, and their names are known as well. We went over all of that. One of them was actually associated with some kind of threat at another area high school. I went over that. Yeah, I don't believe this is who he's referring to, and we'll get into why. There might have been other individuals in camo who were sighted inside the school. And we're going to get into that. Because this is really, really crazy. There's quite a few... I mean, this is one of the biggest mind shocks here. There's a lot here with these. So let's go... There's another... So the janitor's report was completely deleted as well. We're going to go over the whole thing now. Yeah, I can't make out the chicken scratch here. I don't know what this chicken scratch is, but there's some kind of a number on this document here, whatever that is. So here we have... redacted, so this is the janitor. Redacted prompt the easternmost door to the cafeteria so that the lead cook, who he identified as redacted, could enter. He recalls that redacted, he did a cursory examination of the cafeteria at the time, saw no bags or backpacks on the floor of the cafeteria. Redacted walk through the cafeteria at the commencement of each class period. Redacted does not recall see any objects unattended to on the floor of the cafeteria of his walk throughout the day. Redacted said that if he did see an object, it was his habit to put the item on the table so that the person who lost or left it could return and easily find it. That's considerate. He is quite certain that he could have noticed an odd-shaped duffel bag or larger container during one of his walkthroughs. Redacted did note, however, that on April 20th, a student who had been assigned community service was in the cafeteria helping to sweep the floor. I actually went over this account before as well. So approximately 10:30, he would go to the kitchen, get his lunch. April 20th, he said he was waiting at the northwest corner until approximately 10:50 when he went into the kitchen to prepare his lunch. Around 11:15 a.m., redacted, when a young girl came running into the cafeteria, said the words to the effect of, "Someone's been shot." Redacted looked at the window, saw a student laying in the parking lot close to the soccer field. At around that time, a window on the south side of the cafeteria with a Columbine symbol etched in it was blown out by either an explosion or a bullet. Redacted screamed, "Get down," to students around him at the time, recalls hearing sporadic gunfire. Redacted directed students to get under tables as gunfire increased. He noticed some students were running toward the stairs and the double doors leading to the south parking lot. Redacted recalls hearing gunfire upstairs above the cafeteria, and he went to the stairs that led to that area. This is kind of interesting, because if this is all simultaneous, so windows in the cafeteria are getting blown out while there is gunfire upstairs. How is that rectified with the official narrative? So he went to the stairs led to that area. He is not sure, but he thinks he went all the way to the music room located in the northeast side of the building where he saw students fleeing in all directions. He then retraced his steps back toward the cafeteria and library area. He approached the top of the steps in front of the library leading to the cafeteria. He encountered a teacher he identified as Redacted, who said to the words of the effect, "Dave Sanders has been shot. Call an ambulance." Redacted thinks Redacted also may have said that 2 students had been shot, but he's not sure. Redacted reached for his walkie-talkie, and as he turned back to the library, he saw a student in a black trench coat holding a pistol and what Redacted thought was a long-barreled grenade launcher. He said the shoulder weapon was strapped across the individual's chest with the butt of the weapon on the right side of the individual's body. For a brief moment, Redacted and the subject were face to face, and he noticed that under the trench coat, the individual appeared to be wearing a white t-shirt. Redacted did not recognize the individual. Redacted turned and ran to the landing leading to the cafeteria. He should have said the age, because a lot of people said that there were older individuals there, non-high school students. And Jen, you identified one of them as well, right? Jen said one of the splatter punks was wearing camo. Jen says, "I was the reason they got let go. I was still inside the science room when they were apprehended, and the girl on the phone with 911 said 911 wanted to know if they were who I saw outside our room." Jen said, "I saw Robert Perry bring in a very heavy duffel bag with a yellow reflective stripe on it by the handle, or strip. It made him hunch over, and is why I thought he was shorter than Dylan. Robert came in the main doors by the office and headed to the gym." And again, just a reminder for the coincidence theorists, the security cameras in the administrative office areas, that footage has never been released. There was also a camera in the library hallway. And Jen, also, I always ask everybody that was there, I've talked to a few survivors now, was there a camera in the library? And nobody that I have talked to said that they remembered one. So there's a camera in the library hallway and the admin area and the parking lot. None of the footage has ever been released from any of the cameras, other than the cafeteria, which was sent to Quantico first for whatever reason before being released. Yes, Jen says, yes, the guy I saw with Dylan was like 30 years old. He was holding the sawed-off shotgun. Yeah, it's a shame they didn't specifically ask what age this. He said he doesn't recognize the individual, the janitor, but he doesn't say what age he was. Jen said there were only cameras in the weight room, cafeteria, and parking lots. I actually have documented evidence of cameras in the administrative area and the library hallway. So there were school officials and students, a few students who have verified that, and that information was published. That there was a camera in the library hallway, and that there were at least one camera in the admin office area. I didn't even know about the one in the weight room. I didn't even see that one listed. So there's also another camera in the weight room. Yes, Jen says, I believe they had one in the main office too. Yeah, at least one. And there was one in the library hallway, but potentially not inside the library. Okay. So, yeah, he doesn't say how old the individual that he saw here is. Redacted believes that around the time he saw Redacted, who he believes is a social studies teacher, he and Redacted were moving towards the kitchen when he heard a large explosion behind them. Redacted believes it was a pipe bomb, and it blew Redacted to the ground. He and Redacted picked Redacted up and carried him into the kitchen, where they encountered a student whom he identified as Redacted, plus 3 other unidentified students. Redacted warned them back, and the students went toward the storeroom area in the rear of the kitchen. Redacted huddled down behind the dishwasher table, and Redacted closed the door behind them. He is not sure why the gunman did not follow them into the kitchen. He does recall that several students insisted on leaving and left on their hands and knees out the western side of the kitchen, toward the door that led to the west parking lot. Redacted encountered Redacted and a number of other students in the northern storeroom area of the kitchen, and recalls that Redacted and 17 other students entered the storeroom and locked themselves in. He believes the cooks were locked in their office. Redacted then left the kitchen and went back through the cafeteria to the auditorium and found the door unlocked. As he entered the auditorium, he noticed several students sitting near the top of the auditorium, and he saw a teacher who he identified as Redacted sitting with the students. Redacted motioned the students to come to him, and all the students came down to the double doors leading into the auditorium. Redacted told him there was an extreme emergency to get out as quickly as possible. He believes 50 to 60 students ran out the auditorium and down what he referred to as the business hall, which leads to the eastern lower section of the school. Redacted believes that the movement out of the auditorium drew the attention of the individual in the trench coat. And keep in mind, according to the official narrative, Eric and Dylan were together the whole time. So here, again, in what the FBI did not want released, the janitor's account here, he's stating that there's a single shooter multiple times so far here. Jen says in the chat, I took weights every semester and knew there was one in that classroom. Yeah, that's kind of interesting that there seem to be quite a few cameras. And why have they not released the footage from any of them? Because even those cameras, can you see part of the hallway or no? Because if you could see part of the hallway, especially the library hallway and the admin area, in all of the accounts where shooting was heard on both floors simultaneously, because supposedly Eric and Dylan were together the whole time. And not only that, they were cited together by many students, and other students also cited other individuals, including up to 3 at the same time. But obviously, releasing all the footage from all the cameras would probably that would probably clearly show what happened that day. So back to the splatterpunks for a second, though, Jen. So they asked you if the splatterpunks were the people you saw. You said no, and they let them go. That's kind of weird, because even if they weren't who you saw, like, how would they know they weren't involved with other? I mean, if that's just what a weird investigation. That's insane. So Redacted again. Okay, so. Okay. Oh, wow. So he's using the word man here. So would you use man for a high school student? Yeah, this is really interesting here. So drew the attention of the individual in the trench coat, and as he stood at the base of the stairs, he looked up and saw at least one of the individuals who was doing the shooting coming around the corner. Redacted believes it was the same man he had seen in front of the library. That's interesting. Would you call a high school student a man? Maybe, if he looks older. But if he's in his 30s, you would definitely call him a man. Redacted ran back through the cafeteria, and as he ran through the cafeteria, he noticed a student lying on the floor. When he got to the end of the cafeteria, he did not see the subject, so he went back upstairs and saw Redacted near the landing of the stairs. Redacted again saw the shooter standing in front of the library, and it is his recollection that as he and Redacted began running down the stairs together, the shooter began firing rounds at them. Redacted said that as he and Redacted entered the kitchen end, an explosion occurred behind them, and he could hear objects hitting the metal door on the serving line. Once he and Redacted were on the ground in the kitchen, they crawled under a large industrial oven, but realized that hiding place was not secure. Around this time, Redacted heard what he described as a whoosh, and saw fire in the vicinity of the cafeteria and kitchen. Redacted determined that he was in a bad place and moved further into the kitchen. He then entered the walk-in cooler, and Redacted went into the freezer. After approximately 1 minute, Redacted, who was carrying a radio, called Redacted and told him to open the door and that he was coming in the walk-in cooler. The door opened and Redacted entered the walk-in cooler. They propped a food cart against the door and prepared several large objects to use as weapons in case the gunman opened the door. Redacted kept trying to make contact with two individuals who he identified as Redacted on his radio. Redacted said that Redacted answered, and Redacted told them they were in the cooler and tell them when it was safe to come out. Redacted recalling hearing gunshots for a long period of time when he was in the cooler, but he could not tell where they were coming from. He believes he saw shadows moving around the kitchen but did not see anyone. That's kind of creepy. That's kind of terrifying if you think about it. Redacted believes he heard shooting for up to an hour and 30 minutes after the initial incident. He said at one point there was approximately a 20-minute interval of silence and then the shooting began again. He recalled looking at his watch at 1:50 p.m. and around that time recalls hearing shooting. He glanced at his watch at 2:25 p.m. and heard nothing. So that's interesting that the janitor is hearing shooting. Because according to the official narrative, Eric and Dylan died by gunshot wounds to the head at approximately 12 p.m. And yet, right here in this deleted document from the FBI, almost 2 hours later, there's still shooting going on. Jen in the chat says, there was at least 100 students that day that saw the same man I saw. Very interesting. So, Jen named 2 other students here that saw him at the same time you did. Jen also heard shooting after 12 p.m. and got out at around 3:30. And thanks again, Jen, for providing all of this vital eyewitness testimony here, corroborating all the information. I mean, why did the FBI not want this document released of the janitor's account? Yeah, Jen's account is going to be very important in a moment here. But yeah, nothing seems to add up. So are there other camo individuals in the school participating in this kind of covert op or whatever this was? And the splatterpunks may also be involved with the Trenchcoat Mafia in a larger group, but who are these other camo individuals that supposedly claimed to be police officers, and that's how they were let go? Now, if they were upper agency, I mean, yeah, obviously they would be let go. I mean, the plot's going to thicken even further here in these deleted documents that weave a heck of a tale here, and it's just very, very telling why the FBI did not want these particular documents released. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so let's go over one more document, then we'll go over Jen's account and another deleted document that is... okay, so this is very curious. There's a big reveal here in this set here. I don't know what this means at the top of the document, but that is this document. So look at what here, there's classifications here. So this is unclassified. This is very important because some of these other documents are going to be very interesting here. classification top secret, secret, confidential, unclass, EFTO, and unclass. So this is checked unclass. Now, but it's still interesting because the FBI did not want to release this. This just says, you know, which agencies are involved here. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's not really relevant. Except for this, the highlighted in red here. Each of all the different teams and all of this. Each of these teams for investigative teams is coordinated by a Jefferson County Sheriff's Office deputy and an FBI SA. The investigation is, I'm assuming that's special agent. The investigation is being managed by a Jeffco SO captain with coordination and assistance provided by an FBI supervisor. So everything is going through them. So that's interesting because if they decide on a narrative, they're pulling all the strings here. So there is no real independent investigation. So even investigators were honest, they have no choice but to bow to the whims of the string pullers here. And this is another very important point here, previous statements made by students as well as numerous internet postings, mostly by Harris, seem to indicate that they planned and carried out this act alone. However, eyewitness accounts still to be corroborated indicated the possibility of additional individuals seen with captioned subjects immediately before the incident began. Interviews in excess of 200 students and faculty who may have been captioned subjects before and during the incident are underway. Before and during. So we went over 100 accounts. This deleted withheld FBI document says that there's over 200 that may have seen additional shooters. So how many more accounts are in documents that were never released? We have over 100,000 unreleased documents. And I think they're stated not to be released for another 100 years or something like that. Something insane. So here it's stating there's over 200 students and faculty that may have seen the captioned subjects before and during the incident? I don't know. That's kind of weird. How many unreleased documents are there? I mean, there's quite a few. In the previous episodes, I actually went over some noticeably missing eyewitness accounts. Okay, so here's where things are going to get crazy. So let me actually go over... Let me go over Jen Small's account. For people who are not familiar. And Jen, you can correct any inaccuracies here. I simply went over the documents. So let's go back to Jennifer Small. Jen Small, whose account we went over. But I'll do a quick recap. So document 2182 onward. So her handwritten statement is not, there's no date here or time of the statement. So I suppose it could have been day of. I looked between the tables to see what was going on. I saw a senior standing outside our classroom door. I knew he was the shooter. Then I saw an adult, blonde, short, spiky hair, thought he was in his 30s. I thought he was a cop until he held up a sawed-off shotgun. Then he and the senior tried to break into the room where a shot teacher went. So she's the one who saw the older guy with spiked hair in his 30s. When they couldn't get in, they ran away, shooting down the hall once or twice. After that, they ran. I waited outside the door. I saw smoke like a smoke bomb had been lit. We stayed in the room until SWAT escorted us outside. And so, follow-up document here, interview with Jennifer Small. This is document 2185. Interview April 28th by Jill Rudler, Colorado State Patrol, approximately 3:15 at her residence. She had been interviewed a few days before by Pat Vanderkamp. I asked Small to go over the details of the day. She said she had seen Eric Harris at the Smoker's Pit between 11:05 and 11:10 on April 20th. She wasn't sure about what he was wearing, but thought he had on a trench coat. Miss Small said she made a remark about having a bad day to the students. At the pit, Eric said something like, "Not only are you having a bad day, it's Hitler's birthday." Small said she remembered the remark because Harris usually didn't speak with her. She said that she thought some of the other students at the Smoker's Pit might have been Taryn Fleming, Brooks Brown, and Rachel Scott. I mean, that's curiosity. That's a curiosity. April 20th. So all these individuals were at the Smoker's Pit just minutes before the shooting started? Let me read that again. Miss Small said that she had seen Eric Harris at the Smoker's Pit between 11:05 and 11:10 a.m. on April 20th. She wasn't sure about what he was wearing, but thought he had on a trench coat. Other students at the Smoker's Pit might have been Taryn Fleming, Brooks Brown, and Rachel Scott. Miss Small said that between 11:10 a.m. and 11:15 a.m. she saw a person who she thought was redacted, someone who hung out with Dylan, near the main doors, and it appeared that he had just come in. She later identified this person as redacted. She said he was wearing a black trench, black shirt, black and white camo pants. Black and white camo pants. Jen in the chat saying Brooks and Rachel were best friends. They smoked and Rachel wanted to quit. Redacted is Robert Perry. Yeah, okay. So, okay. I'm going to introduce a new theory a little later when we go over some of these more of these documents. Is it common knowledge that Brooks and Rachel were best friends? I have never heard this before in a decade of looking at this case. Jen, is that not common knowledge that they were best friends? I have not heard that before. The other thing that's kind of weird is Eric and Dylan were both sighted at so many different places that morning. I wonder how common it was for them to just be running around like this. Jen says it is common knowledge. I've never actually seen that discussed on any of the forums. I mean, I've gone over thousands and thousands of accounts and forum posts. I've never seen that before. Jen says they were together a lot for drama and debate. Wow, that actually adds quite the wrinkle here. I suppose this would be a good time to ask about Rachel's brother. There's a lot of weird stuff about him online. Jen says, Brooks introduced me to Rachel. Well, Jen, while you're here, if you don't mind answering questions about Brooks, is what has been said about him pretty accurate? That he just lies about everything all the time? I mean, his account seems to be demonstrably inaccurate regarding Eric, and he gave 2 or 3 different versions of it that morning. Lord Zed in the chat saying, I'm of the opinion all this stuff is very connected. Well, this is a first for MindShock. We actually have Jen Small Thompson here in the chat at the same time we're going over her account. I actually talked to a few other survivors, not live on a podcast, but just through email and other correspondence. But I think this is the first time we have a survivor in the chat corroborating information. Jen said, I would trust Brooks with my life. That's interesting. Doesn't really quite answer the question about other people's perceptions of him. I mean, he's made a lot of demonstrably false statements. I don't know if, Jen, if you've watched my previous episodes, I did an entire segment on Brooks Brown. Jen says, I was close with Brooks for many years. I mean, there's always people who just, if they're true ride or die friend with somebody, they're not going to act that way towards that person. But that, they still might act certain ways around other people. But Brooks Brown has made a bunch of inaccurate and conflicting statements. But Jen, and it's okay if you don't want to answer, but what do you think of Rachel's brother? There was a lot of I didn't do an episode on this yet. There's quite a lot of information that was being discussed on various forums that he was actually connected to some Trenchcoat Mafia members. Jen says he found out a lot that day in the cover-up. He probably got too many threats to keep quiet. Yeah, that Craig Scott, there was discussion around Craig Scott that he may have been involved with certain Trenchcoat Mafia members. Jen says Craig is a friend to this day. Yeah, I was gonna go over that on a future episode, but some people uncovered just correspondence. Apparently, he could have been friendly with certain Trenchcoat Mafia members. Again, obviously, I don't know if any of this information is true or not, but, yeah. Well, let's continue with the account here. And again, Jen, this is an account based on the documents. Feel free to correct anything if it is not accurate. So, redacted is Robert Perry, according to Jen.
He normally tucks his pants into his boots, but she doesn't remember if they were tucked in or not. And he was carrying a black colored duffel bag with 1 or 2 yellow stripes, or maybe just some yellow color on it. The bag appeared to be heavy by the way it was being carried upon his shoulder. Miss Small said that Redacted is about 2 to 3 inches shorter than Dylan. Okay, so out of the Trenchcoat Mafia members, who's 2 to 3 inches shorter? Is that pretty much just Joe Stair? Unless he was short, stocky. I don't think that was Brian Sargent. Maybe Zach but Zach Heckler's 6'2", Nate Dykman's 6'2".
And again, Jen actually clarified this earlier. She said in the chat that Robert Perry was carrying heavy bags, so he was hunched over to appear shorter than Dylan. So that was the height discrepancy. So it is Robert Perry that she has identified.
Just a little shorter. So pretty much Joe Stair, who's about... And that ones we don't know the heights of. Miss Small said that she went to science class with Miss Peterson, and that at 11:25 she heard a loud boom, several shots, and then the fire alarm went off. Miss Small said that Mrs. Miller, a teacher, came in and told the students to lock the door. There were 2 adjoining classrooms, and the next room was Mr. Sanders. At some time, she looked into the hallway, saw the trail of blood into the adjoining classroom where Mr. Sanders went after he was shot. Miss Small said that the teachers, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Friesen, Mrs. Miller, and another teacher were in the classroom with Mr. Sanders, and that the students had gathered in the adjoining classroom. Miss Small said that sometime Mr. Johnson came in, told them to flip the tables to sort of barricade they could hide behind. She said she peeked out between the tables and also looked out the windows of the classroom doors. She said between 11:45 a.m. and noon, she looked into the hallway and saw Dylan in the hallway with another white male. She said that he looked past the other person, he would have seen her easily. Miss Small was asked to describe Dylan, and she said he was wearing a black t-shirt with writing on it. She didn't know what it said. And a black hat on backwards with writing on it, and that he had long curly hair. She said that the person with Dylan appeared to be older, had short blonde hair like a buzz cut, and was wearing a white t-shirt, tight fit with no pocket, was carrying a tan-colored sawed-off shotgun. She said they tried to break down the door where Mr. Sanders was, and when they couldn't break down the door, they threw a bomb and ran down the hall. Around 2:55 to 3 p.m., SWAT guy came in to get them out. Okay. I read Miss Small the photo lineup, admonition, showed her photo array, asked if she recognized anyone. She immediately identified photograph number 1 as Dylan, the person she saw outside of the science room between 11:45 and noon on April 20th, 99. I showed Miss Small another photo lineup and asked if she recognized anyone. She immediately identified the person in the photograph number 3 as Eric, the person she had seen in the smoker's pit between 11:05 and 11:10 a.m. on April 20th, 99. I showed Miss Small another photo lineup, asked her if she recognized anyone. She positively identified the person in photograph number 6 as an associate of the Trenchcoat Mafia. She did not know their name. The person in photograph number 6 is Chris Morris. I showed Miss Small another photo lineup, asked if she recognized anyone. Miss Small that she believed the person number 3 may be the person that carried in the duffel bag. Miss Small said she didn't know his name. The person in photograph number 3 is redacted. So is that either Joe Stair, Robert Perry? During the interview, Miss Small marked on a map of the school the location of the science room that she had been in. She marked this room Peterson classroom. She drew a small line to depict where the tables had been set on their sides, X to mark the spot where the students hid behind the tables. In the hallway, she marked a D for where Dylan was standing when she looked out the window of the door, and an E for where the other person was standing with Dylan.
Jen in the chat says, I went out into the hall. Miss Miller told us to get back in the room. Boys with guns were coming, and she would lock the doors to the room to protect us. If you look at the photos of Eric that day, his white shirt is baggy on his arms. The guy I saw talking to Eric was buff, and his shirt was tight around his biceps. Yeah, so this is curious, because a lot of the coincidence theorists that hallucinate, they know better than the people who were there, who clearly knew the individuals involved and how they look different. They claim that all of these over 100 people made all of these misidentifications. So Jen is clearly stating here that, yeah, I see what you mean with the baggy shirt. Look here. Look how baggy Eric's shirt is here. Look at all that space between the arm and the shirt. I mean, this is a colorized photo of the cafeteria footage, but yeah, there's a lot of space there. Are the coincidence theorists going to get triggered because they're going to say this photo is manipulated? Alright, let's see what we could... So, in the regular photo here... Alright, so here's the non-colorized version, and you could see the same thing. Look at all of the space between his arm and the t-shirt sleeve. He's clearly not buff. He's quite skinny. Eric Harris is quite skinny. So Jen in the chat here is confirming here that the individual she saw, so not only could she not have misidentified Eric Harris because the other individual was talking to Eric. So she saw them both at the same time. The guy I saw talking to Eric was buff, and his shirt was tight around his biceps. Or talking to Dylan, rather. Okay, so not Eric, Dylan. And he was in his 30s. Jen said, I saw Eric 30 minutes prior to Dylan outside my room talking to the blonde guy. So this is a blonde guy in his 30s who's buff, and the t-shirt is tight around the biceps, unlike Eric Harris, who clearly nobody can mistake his bicep being tight around the shirt. Duckin' Felonies in the chat says, my old boss was there too, but she didn't see them. Jen says, it wasn't Eric talking to Dylan outside my classroom. So she saw all three individuals. Well, all four, right? So she saw Eric Harris, who she clearly identified. She saw Dylan Klebold, who she clearly identified. She saw Robert Perry, who she clearly identified as all different individuals, as well as this blonde guy in his 30s, approximately, who's buff with his bicep tight around the shirt. Jen says, the cops got mad at me when I wouldn't change my statement to say it was Eric when it wasn't. Well, let me ask you this. Did you get the impression that these were Keystone cops and they just wanted to close the case and make it nice and neat? Or did you get the impression that they knew that there was some kind of cover? Because, I mean, I'm not... It's... Do you think they knew that there were additional shooters and this was some kind of covert op? Or do you think they genuinely were just either dumb or they didn't care what the truth was? It was just a day at the office and they just wanted you to say what matched everybody else just so it would match. So do you think they were mad from a nefarious standpoint or from they don't care about the truth, they really don't think there was somebody else, and they just want to make it neat? Because I've seen this when I went over the 100+ accounts. It seemed that they did this with a lot of people, and then certain parents wouldn't even let their kids be interviewed because they were afraid that they wouldn't be believed. Duckin' Felonies asking, there were 4 with guns, question mark. So they were up to 8. So from what all the documents I've seen, now it's possible some of them were mistaken, but they were potentially up to 8. Jen says, in the report, one officer said, quote, at one point my mom and Jennifer seemed to question the credibility of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, end quote. Damn straight we questioned them. They wanted me to lie and got mad when I refused. And I know, obviously, you were so young at the time. You know, obviously, when you're a lot older, you could read people better. But did you have any vibe, or was there... I mean, obviously, they wouldn't be credible if they didn't care about the truth, but did you think, or what did your mom think? Did you think that they knew full well that this was some kind of covert op with multiple shooters? Or do you think they were just incompetent? And they thought there were only 2 because they were told there were 2, and they thought you were just being difficult? Like, was it coming, was it just in, so... Jen says, yes, it's a huge cover-up. So you got the vibe that it was nefarious. Like they were getting mad because they knew that there were more shooters and you wouldn't, help them cover it up. Well, Duckin' Felonies, the 8 is just what I've seen documented, just based on all of the, just the amount, just the not just the eyewitnesses, but the ear witnesses. Because while Eric and Dylan were being cited in the library, so many other people heard shooting in other areas of the school. So there's, on both floors simultaneously and also outdoors. Not to mention all of the fully automatic weapon fire that was reported not only by students but by law enforcement, and EMS personnel, which I've gone over in previous episodes. So it potentially could have been 8, but it looks like the bare minimum would have been 3, but it looks like it was probably 4 to 8. Jen says, my mom thinks so too. So your mom got just a bad vibe from them. Yes, I have the photo of the third gunman. I can put it up right now. Is this your photo? Or your drawing? Yeah, that doesn't really look like Eric. Jen says, I think he was related to Eric, military guy. Okay. Well, I mean, again, it's kind of hard to ignore that in a lot of these cases, there's just somebody in high-level government military, like Eric's father. It's just kind of weird. It's kind of weird. But yeah, let's get back to the account here. I'm about to drop some big mind shocks with some more deleted files that might be related to this. So
This was at my direction, as Miss Small does not believe that the other person was Eric. Miss Small drew an arrow to indicate which way the suspects ran after they unsuccessfully tried to break down the adjoining classroom door and then threw the bomb. So, curious follow-up here on October 13th, 99, regarding the follow-up interview that occurred on October 12th. Okay, so Jennifer, her mother, met at the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office South Substation, conducted the interview. Okay. My initial question was pertaining to Jennifer's observations, where she stated she saw redacted at the high school between 11:10 and 11:15 on 4/20, and that redacted was near the main doors and appeared to be carrying a large duffel bag. Jennifer initially identifies this person as redacted, then recants and identifies redacted. So these are two different individuals. Both redacted, neither Eric or Dylan. Jennifer explained that she does not know redacted and told me that the individual she saw that day looked similar to redacted, but she could not positively tell me who the subject was. I asked Jennifer if she was implicating redacted as being involved in this incident. She told me she has no knowledge of him being involved in this incident and did not see him doing anything which would lead her believe that he was involved in the incident. And again, how much of this is coached, how much of this was based on them not wanting her to make trouble, etc., etc. We don't know any of this information.
the other thing I've talked about in going over all these accounts, the write-up after the fact doesn't match. Like, so many of the students, their handwritten statements does not match the written up report presented by the investigators after the fact. For example, Jen, was that accurate? So the investigators are saying that you said that this other individual was not involved and you didn't see them doing anything that made you think there was involved? Did they make that up? Because again, we're reading the words of these investigators here. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily take what they're saying as true at face value, because they're making it seem like they're clearly steering the narrative, very obviously so. Jen says, I don't recall making that statement. Yeah, that sounded kind of suspect. You know what's crazy, though? So this was my original coverage of Jen Smol's statement, however many years ago here. Even without, because Jen is in the chat right now corroborating everything, and I didn't know any of this, and already I was suspicious of the officer's write-up because so many of the write-ups from the investigators do not match the handwritten statements of the students. I mean, it's kind of crazy. And the other thing that's just straight up disgusting is how these investigators are trying to gaslight these children. They're trying to gaslight the children. I mean, think about it. You're a fully grown adult, supposedly professional investigator. You're gaslighting children who survived a shooting where their friends died. I mean, it is pretty insane when you stop and think about it. And what's even more disgusting are all the goof coincidence theorists just pretending that everything is exactly as described on the idiot box and that the official narrative has to be true no matter what. And they're defending these scum investigators trying to gaslight these traumatized kids. I mean, it's crazy. When you actually stop and think about it, it's really, really crazy.
I asked Jennifer about the statement that she made between 11:45 a.m. and noon. She observed two armed gunmen in the hallway just outside her science class. Jennifer identifies Dylan Klebold as being one of the armed gunmen, describes him as wearing a black t-shirt with writing on it, had a black hat on turned backwards with writing on it, and she saw his long curly hair extended below the baseball cap. Jennifer stated she was positive this individual was Dylan Klebold. In her statement, she then describes a second armed gunman who is unknown to her. She described the second gunman as being older, had short blonde hair like a buzz cut, was wearing a white t-shirt, tight fit, no pockets, carrying a tan-colored sawed-off shotgun. She said the description was accurate, at which time she provided me a composite drawing that she had done in reference to the suspect she saw at the high school, and provided a complete description of the suspect. Jennifer described the subject as having natural strawberry blonde hair, buzz cut, stating that the face was well-defined, high cheekbones chiseled. The party had a wide forehead and muscular neck. So that's not Eric Harris. He was 5'11 to 6 feet tall, oval face, small upper lip, narrow nose, small eyebrows. I took the two items as evidence, later placed them in the Jeffco office evidence vault for safekeeping. I asked Jennifer if she could provide the identification of that second armed gunman. She told me she did not recognize the individual and she did not believe the party was Eric Harris. I explained to Jennifer that throughout this investigation, we relied not only on forensic evidence that was recovered at the scene, but with the assistance of witness identification that the two gunmen that were in Columbine High School have been identified as Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. I like how all these investigators just lie through their teeth and completely don't mention all the countless accounts we went over. Dozens and dozens of students who spotted other gunmen, identified either Chris Morris or Robert Perry as additional shooters. Possibly Brian Sargent, Joe Stair. They don't mention any of that, so they just try to gaslight everybody into thinking that everybody else identified Eric and Dylan, but obviously the students talk amongst each other and they know that that's not the case. I also told Jennifer that a videotape did exist which showed two armed gunmen down in the cafeteria at the school, and I asked her if I could show her still photos of that videotape and have her determine if these two individuals she saw at the high school on the incident date. Jennifer and her mom were shown photos 44, 47, 52, 53. The still photos clearly depict Dylan Klebold, Eric Harris as being the two armed gunmen in the school. One of the photos has the time of 11:46 a.m. This is 1 minute after Jennifer claims she saw them in the upper level of the school. Eric Harris is shown in the photo wearing a white-colored t-shirt. Also, is that timestamp accurate? Because again, I've gone over this on many other podcasts, true crime podcasts. People installing security systems, just go on all these forums, late 90s, early 2000s, roughly half of all CCTV security footage has the wrong timestamp on it. So, can we put blind faith in the timestamps?
I mean, it's so disgusting reading this report You could smell the investigators trying to gaslight Jen through the screen, can't you? They're showing her the footage, which, by the way, was not released right away. It was sent to Quantico first. So the FBI may or may not have doctored, adjusted, or cut the cafeteria footage that was released. And they're trying to pretend the timestamp has to be accurate. I mean, it's so crazy. Duckin' Felonies asks, how many other kids reported more than 2 shooters? Over 100, and I went over every single one of the released accounts. There's potentially many more accounts that have not been released in unreleased documents. Duckin' Felonies, if you just go to the playlist section on the channel here, on the Bruce McGuire channel, the home of MINDSHOCK, go in the playlist section, in the Columbine playlist. This is the 21st episode. I go over every single publicly available report. There's over 100. So not only more than 2 shooters, but several dozen accounts had 3 subjects. They witnessed 3 or more subjects simultaneously. And once again, once you add the ear witness testimony and match up the timestamps, apparently there were more. One of the theories is that a bunch of students were, or students and or adults or covert operatives were involved in some shooting early on, and then everybody bailed, leaving Eric and Dylan there to kind of take the fall or whatever. Except for, again, the operative. So, yeah, and we're going to get to some damning documentation possibly backing up that theory. But let's continue here.
Eric Harris is shown in the photo wearing a white-colored t-shirt. He has short haircut, dark pants, and is carrying a sawed-off shotgun. Jennifer looked at the photos again, and I asked her, are these the 2 individuals that she saw at the high school? Jennifer positively identified Dylan Klebold, but stated the other subject she saw was not Eric Harris. She told me the party she saw was 25 to 30 years old and had a thick, muscular neck and muscular build, and that Eric Harris was too scrawny to be the same party she observed. I again reiterated with Jennifer that the still photos are of Eric Harris, and it is the same description that she is giving us. Is it the same description? That's not even close to the same description. What the heck? They're trying to gaslight her hard. Man, let's see if she bends. Jennifer again told me she could not positively identify the second gunman as being Eric Harris, and believed that the second gunman she saw was somebody other than Eric Harris. Nancy asked me how the news media had gotten copies of the cafeteria video, which was released on national news on October 12th, 1999. I told Nancy I did not know how or why the video was released. Nancy said, you have custody of the tapes and you don't know how they were released. I told her I did not have that information and I wasn't privy to it. Nancy told me that it was hard for her to sit here and believe what I was telling her about the case when she has concerns if the sheriff's office is giving her truthful information. It was apparent to this investigator that Nancy and Jennifer were questioning the credibility of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. And good on them. Credibility should be questioned. Nothing should be taken on blind faith. At the completion of this interview, Nancy and Jennifer then expressed their concerns, telling me that they believe their home telephone has been tapped and someone is monitoring their calls. I asked Nancy why she believes this. She told me there's a constant beeping when you're on the telephone talking, and she was told several years ago that the beeping is indicative that someone has tapped your phone line. I asked Nancy who she believes tapped her phone line. She told me her scenario is that associates who are sympathetic to Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold might be responsible because these parties know that their daughter has information on the identity of the 2 gunmen. Jennifer also explained that since the incident date, they have received several hang-up calls at their residence telling me that the caller ID identified the calls as being out of the area. I asked Nancy and Jennifer if any of the calls were threatening in nature or if they were coming at inconvenient hours of the day. They told me that they were nothing more than hang-up calls, and they have received anywhere from as many as 3 per day. They were instructed that if they have a legitimate concern about the phone calls and somebody making harassing phone calls, they should contact the sheriff's office and speak with a uniformed deputy who could ultimately initiate some type of harassment report. I also explained to them that the phone service has means of trapping those annoying phone calls and that information can be provided to law enforcement if a criminal report has been generated. Okay. So, I mean, there's clearly some witness intimidation going on here. We'll be examining more of that later, but it's curious. She did not back down, and her mother basically supported her as well. And they have included a sketch of the second gunman. I mean, I gotta say, it kind of sort of looks like Eric Harris, but again, it's impossible to gauge the age of this individual. But if he's super muscular, this is only his facial features. I mean, I guess it could pass for Eric Harris, but if he's a lot older, I mean, it's kind of hard to mistake a 30-year-old for a 17 or 18-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this again, look at the head shape. Eric Harris's head shape is actually completely different than the sketch. I mean, I was kind of only looking at the eyes and the nose. The eyes and the nose are maybe a little bit similar. But the head shape is completely different. So, yeah.
But on the forum, people are actually sharing screenshots from Facebook, Jennifer Small's Facebook. This is from 2019, but I don't know how much earlier these Facebook shots are. And they were asking about who she saw. She says, I don't know. I thought he was an officer when I first saw him trying to calm Dylan down. I drew a picture, gave it to the police. They hide it or say it was Eric because of the haircut. The third gunman was a muscular adult, not a scrawny kid. And again, the coincidence theorists all pretend that these were simple misidentifications and everything was cleared up after the investigation. Clearly, that's not true. Clearly.
Another thing I want to mention here and ask Jen. So your impression was it was an officer trying to calm him down. So looking at this in hindsight, if this is a covert op, was it an officer trying to make sure Dylan stayed on the agenda? Because a lot of people, like, the vibe you get about certain things, especially the initial impression right off the bat, more of a subconscious impression before you even have time to think about it a lot, is the most accurate one. So the relationship you witnessed here was this: you thought he was an officer, perhaps he is a government operative, and he's trying to maybe calm Dylan down so he could stay on the agenda? Pepperoni asked Jen, do you know anything about the death ed classes that were happening? Jen says no. I don't know if they were still going on by 1999, Pepperoni. They were in the years prior. More than a few years. There was still some kind of stuff going on, but it wasn't as obvious. I don't know if it was called death education in 1999. That was earlier years. Jen says Dylan was freaking out and upset. This guy was getting him to calm down. Wow. I mean, that might be some of the most damning testimony. So he was freaking out and upset. Did you so looking back on it now, was it the impression and he didn't really want to do it? Or were there conflicting? If he's MK Ultra and there's conflicting personalities here at play. Jen says, yeah, probably to keep him focused on the plan. Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, I don't know about coincidence theorists, but I am not going to tell somebody who was actually there, witnessed this, that their impressions and instincts are wrong. I mean, you gotta be pretty goofy to say that. Wow. Well, if you think Duck and Felony says this is blowing my mind right now, we'll wait until I get to some of them. We're going to get to some more FBI deleted documents that possibly backs all of this up.
Someone asked her, did they ever find evidence? She says, there is evidence to support up to 20 people helping them that day. My old friends Brooks was friends with Eric and told to ditch that day, so Brooks did a lot of research on it all. He was a bit obsessed about proving his own innocence because of how many people blamed him. I remember going out with him and his car got egged while we were inside a gas station. Wow, that sucks. And Brooks Brown, I gotta say, out of all these parties, Brooks Brown and Eric Veek really seem to be the most emotional and possibly are the most likely to not be connected with any of this or having any kind of prior knowledge or definitive prior knowledge. Whereas all these other individuals are just appeared to be incredibly shady. Again, doesn't mean they were involved, but yeah. Someone said, what a conversation. We who aren't in Denver never heard anything else about a third person. You're in my thoughts and prayers. Jen Small said it was covered up. That's why I was told never to write a book. They want it to stay that way. Jennifer Small stated, thank you for kind words and prayers. In May of 1999, I wrote down every little thing I remembered from that day, minute by minute almost. There is a chance I will still write my own book. If I tell enough people about the threats I got, maybe they won't come true when I do decide to write a book. I don't want to be a martyr, but I want to find the truth by sharing what I know. A few more posts by her. The police were very mean about telling me that I didn't see what I saw. And yet they told me flat out that I was one of their most credible witnesses that day. Is that because she identified Dylan Klebold like they wanted her to? They had so much evidence to back up what I say happened to us, and their evidence said my time frames were very close, maybe a minute or two off, but I didn't see a third gunman. When you're in a traumatizing situation later, it's hard to admit when you're wrong. A Jeffco officer trying to convince me that there was no third gunman. Yeah, right. I won't be bullied to hide what I know. Someone asked her, was it staged? Jen Small responded, I don't know the whole story. All I know is that the fear, pain, and deaths were all very real for those of us who lived through it. She has another interesting comment here. Someone responding, they really hid that well in the media because the only people I ever knew of were Dylan and Eric. You're amazingly strong, Jen Small, for sharing your painful experience. She responded, the media is often controlled and inaccurate about the actual facts. I mean, more apparent now in 2021 than ever before, of course. I can't tell you how many times I watched the news or read a paper that I ended up yelling at it because I knew firsthand it didn't happen like they said that it did. They also say Dylan and Eric died almost right away, around 12:15. I think the police try to say that. If that's so, who blew up the fire alarm system at 1:35 p.m.? And she actually apparently commented on YouTube as well as Jennifer Thompson. She's got some interesting comments here. This was 2 years ago. This video was Raw Cut, the Mysterious Third Shooter by the Keith Carnes YouTube channel. Posted September 27th, 2018, but this comment by Jennifer Thompson 2 years ago. A few comments here. Thank you for sharing some of my accounts from that day. This will forever bother me. In the years since I have spoken to a few men who claim to be former officers of Jeffco, they all said they quit because of the cover-up. They warned me not to write a book about my experience at Columbine that day. They said if I wrote a book about it, I could easily meet an unfortunate accident. That should tell you something is amiss right there. And of course, if you've listened to MINDSHOCK Columbine episode 1, the amount of people who had mysterious deaths after Columbine is just astronomical. Jennifer Thompson also made this comment just 5 months ago. Another survivor that saw him too wrote a book. Her name is Kristen Kruger. You could look up her book and read it. There are some random videos on YouTube and mentions of it in documentaries about why such things happen. My old friend Brooks Brown also wrote a book called No Easy Answers. I would just Google it, see what comes up. There were about 100 witnesses of the same guy, but the police talked most of them out of believing what they saw. They tried to do that with me. That's why in my part of the official report, you will see where a deputy wrote, at one point it seemed as if Jennifer and her mother questioned the credibility of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department. Because we did, and with good reason. So check out the official reports too, you'll see what I'm talking about. Another YouTube comment from Jennifer. And thank you for sharing my drawing. When they displayed all evidence for everyone to come see, they put my written description of the third gunman on top of my drawing on his face, so that you couldn't see the face. Also, in my part of the report, you will see that when they told me I was one of the most credible witnesses of that day, they also tried very hard to convince me that I saw Eric with the sawed-off shotgun, and then they reported at one point it seemed as though Nancy and Jennifer questioned the credibility of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department. Damn straight we did. They wanted to believe everything else I saw that day, but who I saw doing what. You also left out how I saw a friend of theirs bring in a heavy duffel bag minutes before the shooting. The name is redacted, but it was Robert Perry. He had a lame alibi that the police bought too. Makes me mad. I know they are out there living as if they had no part in this massacre, and just so you know, I was calm for 90% of the time I spent trapped. Others with me that day can testify to that too. I was not scared and upset. I was excited, thinking we were being saved. And then I saw the gun in his hand and said, uh-oh, I guess we aren't being saved after all. The guy was trying to calm D down and held up his hands to say, I don't know. And then I saw the sawed-off shotgun in his left hand. I was one of about 100 people who saw him too. They tried their damnedest to convince all of us that we didn't see the third guy. Oh, I guess we...
So that's Jen Small's account and some of her comments here. Also in the chat, she just said Dylan was hyped up and upset that things weren't all going to plan. They had to go to their backup plan. So going to plan, meaning the major explosions, because they were supposed to collapse the cafeteria. Or the cafeteria library, they were going to collapse all of that. It was quite an elaborate plan. Let me just play this clip early on, because a lot of the early news footage, and Jen, do you happen to know people who have all that the original news footage that all disappeared? And all has been scrubbed from the internet, never aired again? Because there was some damning information in those early news reports. Let me just give one example of that here.
New evidence tonight, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris may not have acted alone. FBI sources tell CBS News the detonator on the propane tank bomb found in the kitchen is so sophisticated, it is unlikely that the two made it themselves.
And I actually played quite a few hours of news footage that I was able to find, but a lot of the original footage is no longer available. I wonder, Jen, if you had kept any, or if you had taped any of it, you or your mom. Is particularly some of the helicopter footage apparently shows law enforcement having a shootout with certain individuals, may or may not have been Eric and Dylan. But, okay, so now that we went over Jen's account, let's get to this next document, which is, and did, Jen, were you one of the ones who said you heard people speaking German, or no? This old, because there were other people who said they saw an older guy speaking German. And I don't know if, Jen, if you're aware of this deleted document. It's quite mind-shocking here. So, here's the ID on the document. Make of this what you will. Some kind of scribble and a number here. This is a deleted FBI document here. Dated April 27th, 99. Being a smoker, so this is, okay. Redacted telephonically advised that on April 15th, 99, at 9:47 a.m., she boarded Amtrak train 807 en route to Winona, Minnesota. According to redacted, train 807's final destination was Washington State. It stopped in Chicago, Illinois as well and left there at 2:15 p.m. Being a smoker, redacted advised that she spent some time in the train's smoking car and struck a conversation with a white female named either Redacted or Redacted, phonetic. This female was approximately 5 feet 90 pounds, blonde shoulder-length hair and a ponytail, wearing glasses and no makeup. She thought little of this contact until later. After the train left Chicago, she noticed a white male in the smoking car. This male was in his late teens, 6 feet tall, 180 pounds, bleached blonde hair cut short. He was wearing a black trench coat and spoke German on occasion. He seemed to be alone, and she heard him say to no one in particular, "Something's big is going to happen." Later on, she saw Redacted with him. She did not know whether either of these people were headed and did not know when they left the train. She left the train in Winona, Minnesota. Redacted felt that this information could be brought to the attention of law enforcement. Okay, so there's a guy with bleached blonde hair cut short, wearing a black trench coat, speaking German, saying something big is going to happen 5 days prior to Columbine in Chicago. Jen says she never taped it. Jen says the quote of the day during the video morning announcements was in German. It said, "Prepare yourselves, for you're all gonna die today." The German exchange student told me the translation. Were you aware of this document, Jen? This deleted FBI document. I mean, I'm sure on some of the forums people have gone over it, but this is kind of curious. 5 days prior, it's a German, and he's with a 5 foot 90 pound blonde as well, or appeared to be with her, or she saw him, or she saw her with him later. Now, what does "with" mean? Were they talking, but does that mean they knew each other or no prior? So that's unknown, I guess. But he's speaking German, and then he's saying to no one in... So he's just randomly saying something big is going to happen. Now, are these the ramblings of an insane person, or are these the rambling of an insane person because they've been MK Ultra? Jen says Dylan and Eric were responsible for the video morning announcements being aired. All right, let's go to the next exhibit here. Now it's going to get really crazy. It's going to get pretty crazy. What's the ID on this document? Whatever you can make of that right there. Okay, so redacted, interviewed, protect identity, redacted, date of birth, telephone number, redacted. Advise the identity of the interviewing agents for the purpose of the interview, provided the following information. Redacted spends a lot of time on the internet, redacted in a chat room, redacted America Online, redacted high school, redacted. Mostly talked about computers with redacted, also talked to Vodka on the internet and believes that Vodka's first name is Dylan. Whole bunch of redacted. After redacted heard about the shootings at Columbine High School, redacted on the internet, a whole bunch redacted. Said that he knew the 2 shooters and 4 others that died. Also said that redacted was involved. Redacted said that redacted helped make bombs and that the guns used in the shooting were obtained from a local militia. He also made a comment that the 3rd gunman did not do his job. Is this Perry? Morris? Who is this? Said that the other gunman's name was redacted. I believed that both redacted were acting strangely. Redacted said that when redacted was telling redacted what happened, he switched from first person to third person frequently, and redacted felt that he may have had something to do with the shooting. Redacted said that redacted was also acting strangely because he said he was not really affected by the shootings. Whole bunch more redacted. Redacted said that his friend was at his house when he was on the internet with redacted and saw the text of the chat room. Redacted, whole bunch redacted. Request of the special agent redacted on front. So they redacted the special agent's identity as well? That's interesting. April 23rd, save the text of the chat room conversation he had with redacted on a floppy disk. Alright, let's get even crazier. Redacted has always been honest and careful. Redacted. If he knew anyone died, he said 4 people. He said he wasn't fazed by this at all. Same with redacted. So there's more than one individual here. So did redacted, like, oh well, a couple people died, big deal. I knew Dylan, aka Vodka, on IRC, redacted. Blade's mom? Somebody told Blade's mom, who's Blade, about the tragedy, and she said redacted wasn't showing any emotion either. Like he was holding it all in. And she spoke about Dylan and Eric both. She said redacted was the most psychotic one of them all. So whoever this is way more psychotic than Eric and Dylan and all the others. I would like to remain anonymous until it is found that the information leads to any arrest. Then you may call or email me. One more thing. The weapons came from a local militia in the area. Redacted mentioned a couple, but I forgot which one. It has Aryan Nazi ties. The reason it happened on 420 is because they got all the guns and ammunitions and explosive compounds for free to do it on that date. And if the suspect that got arrested and fled shortly after released is redacted, he's probably already dead, suicide. Also, redacted was watching me have this whole conversation, so there is more than one witness. All right, so this is quite the damning document. So who are they talking about? So, I mean, it's relatively open and shut where Eric and Dylan got their guns from, but what about the other shooters? If there were other shooters, where did they get their guns? Is there a militia involved? Or are these some kind of is this a government op posing as a militia, supplying guns through some MK Ultra covert op? I mean, what's really going on here? I mean, and why did the FBI not want anybody to see these documents? I mean, this is really, really crazy stuff here. And it's about to get even crazier. So, let's look at this document here. There's the identification of the document. Make of that what you will. Precedence priority. So here we have actual attempted bombing, domestic police cooperation. So Denver, report to Denver, info received by Kansas City for information, Denver, Missouri. Okay. On April 27th, 99, redacted, was telephonically contacted by a former confidential informant currently living in the redacted area who provided information concerning the high school shootings in Littleton, Colorado. Redacted former CI is employed in an unknown capacity at a whole bunch of redacted. The CI told redacted that a coworker redacted had told the CI and other coworkers that redacted's teenage daughter had exchanged electronic mail with one or both of the captioned subjects. Redacted reportedly told her coworkers that she expected the FBI to show up at her home in the near future to question her daughter about the email messages. The CI had no way of knowing if redacted information was correct or was in any way relevant to the Littleton shooting investigation, but the CI felt the info should be relayed to law enforcement authorities. The CI agreed to contact redacted if the CI learned of any additional information regarding this matter. On April 28, 99, redacted telephonically advised SA that to his knowledge, redacted did not receive any similar info to which was provided by redacted. Okay. So this person's in Missouri? Possibly. Huh. This is really weird. So why is a CI? So this is a CI, and in what capacity were they a CI? So their coworker has a teenage daughter that was in contact with these guys. Yeah, this is weird that a CI is involved here. Jen in the chat says Chris Morris was more crazy in my opinion. And again, why would this be deleted and it's all redacted anyway? So just another one of these really weird documents. Okay, now this is one of the most shocking here. One of the absolute most shocking. Actually, we got one more, and then it's this one, and then I'm going to go to the craziest one in a second. And just remember what I said about the documents before. So the only ID we have here is this number. Make of that what you will. Okay. Armed and dangerous knowledge of improvised explosive devices, IED. Synopsis: results of the interview with redacted, Columbine high school student, redacted. Administrative: all persons interviewed were furnished the appropriate provisions of the Privacy Act. Express promises of confidentiality, both limited and unlimited, have been granted to the following individuals. So are these other Trenchcoat Mafia members who may or may not have been involved, and they were granted, they've been granted confidentiality, possibly even immunity? That's some people are saying that's what happened with Robert Perry and Chris Morris, that they were granted immunity for cooperating. But so there's really not much here. So there's emails and protected identity references. After the recent incident, Redacted began trying to contact Redacted to inquire to Redacted's well-being. Redacted regarding the incident. Redacted, associate of Eric Harrison, Dylan Klebold, a whole bunch of Redacted. Redacted went home for lunch on the day that Harrison Klebold killed other students. Redacted was very upset and could not believe that the two men could do what they did. Redacted received an email from a whole bunch of Redacted. Recommended she contact the FBI. So this is a female? Armed and dangerous, knowledge of improvised explosive devices? Yeah, I don't know what to make of this unless this female has information on other males of the Trenchcoat Mafia. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of redacted here, and again, these are the files the FBI did not want released. Okay, here's the biggest smoking gun so far. Let's look at this here. Maybe not the biggest, there's so many. But this one is interesting. Let's look at the top of this file here. Secret classification. So this is a secret document marked secret with the X and a circle. Now, is X with the circle? We saw that on multiple documents. Does that mean secret? That's pretty weird. Well, let's go through what it says, because this is really weird. Really weird. This secret. Why is this classified secret? To report information possibly connected to the shootings. So, April 26, 99, Special Agent Redacted, WFO, was contacted by Redacted, Associate Director for Customer Service, National Tech Info Service, regarding Columbine High School shootings. NTIS is a branch of the Commerce Department and is the main broker of U.S. government manuals and publications to the public. Interview of Redacted later the same day revealed that an employee who worked for her as a program analyst, Redacted, had taken a phone call on April 23rd, 99. The caller ID'd herself as Redacted Home Phone Redacted, a high school teacher from Dearborn, Michigan, stated that her cellular number, Redacted, had recently been stolen and that she was calling the telephone numbers that had been dialed from the stolen phone subsequent to its theft. Redacted had dialed 1-800-468-4636, which had been called from the stolen phone at 8 a.m. EDT. Did they forget to redact that number? On 4/20/19, it was called at 6 a.m. on 4/20/99, was connected to NTIS, unless that's NTIS number. After learning who the number belonged to, that the NTIS broker's unclassified government manuals, Redacted told Redacted that one of the calls had been made from the stolen phone the same morning of the call to NTIS, and the Columbine High School shootings was made to Littleton, Colorado. While the phone call to NTIS only lasted 2 minutes, Redacted believes that Redacted told her the call to Littleton lasted more than 30 minutes and occurred prior to the shootings. Did not provide... Wait, did they forget to redact her name here? With the phone number in Littleton, and no further info is available at this time. So this is a top secret document here? The above info may or may not be related. NTIS is attempting to discern whether the 2-minute phone call to them on 4/29 can be traced to any order placed at the time. So someone stole a teacher's phone, called NTIS, National Tech Information Services. This is a government. This is a commerce department, a branch of the Commerce Department, the main broker of U.S. government manuals. It's almost like that could be a cover for something. Keep in mind, this is a top secret. This is a document classified top secret, or not top secret, secret. There's also top secret, about a stolen phone that called a U.S. government entity and then called Littleton, Colorado for 30 minutes on the morning of April 20th. That's an interesting coincidence. I don't know what to make of that. So Michigan actually did have some activity. Michigan had some activity here. Bel Air, Port Lansing, Port Huron in after Columbine. But yeah, that's kind of weird. Just another weird coincidence in this secret, in this document, classified secret. So, but why would they steal the phone, though? That's kind of weird. Recently been stolen, unless the person that stole it was not the person that made the calls? If there is some kind of national trench coat mafia with a lot, but why would they call a government? Why would they call a government agency? Unless it was their handler, if they had a handler at NTIS. And that would explain why this document was classified secret and deleted from the FBI release of the FOIA documents in their report. In the chat, Eric Ogren asks, what was your favorite class in school, Jen? Jen responds, I had two favorite classes that I took every semester of high school, weights and metal shop metal jewelry. I ended up teaching the jewelry classes with an official teacher overseeing me since Mrs. Nielsen was in the library during 420 and didn't come back after the shooting to teach. I loved the class and didn't want to lose it. I had to teach it to save it. Wow, that's a really cool story. Jen says, regarding the translation of the morning announcements, the exchange student told me that's why she ditched. She told me this months later at a mutual friend's house, so not that same day. Okay, so yeah, a lot of documents. I mean, we got plenty more to go over, but I'm going to round this podcast out here when we're pushing 3 hours. Actually, I have one more clip. All right, I spoil you guys. I got one more bombshell clip here from a radio show. Loveline Tapes, if anybody's heard of this. So this was number 1061, October 24th, 1999, Sunday night show. This is a new tape, existing episode, first recovered back in 2008. Perhaps the most important and sadly still relevant episode of 1999. 3 students from Columbine High School appear on the show. Alicia, Rich, and Courtney are all making their only appearances on CLL. Adam keeps the show light, tells why it is possibly the best version of takeout food order mix-up story. The students walk the guys through the events of the shooting and prove to be terrific guests. This is truly one of a kind episode. Yeah, I don't know about joking around. I mean, this is just a few months later. I don't know about joking around. But anyway, everybody listen to this clip from this show. It is quite the mind shock.
You know, I mean, this is why whenever I watch these cop movies and the guy yells, "No time for backup, I'm going in," I always think, what do you mean? I turn on the news, they've surrounded a Safeway supermarket, and it's been 3 days before anyone goes in there, and then they send dogs in, and then it turns out that the guy crawled out through the air conditioning duct on Tuesday. But, I mean, shouldn't they be heading on in? I mean, I understand there's danger, in everything, but that's why you're on the SWAT team.
The situation's kind of difficult because
it's such a big school. You don't know where they are.
You don't want to second guess people, but anyway, that's part of my job is to criticize things I don't know about. I understand 15 minutes. You guys arrive and there's confusion on the scene or whatever, but 2 hours. It was really 2 hours? I mean, don't you got to head on in after about an hour and 45 minutes?
Yeah, I think they were already in there because when we were sitting in the green room, we heard conversation between a couple of people. Personally, I thought I heard people saying, get down, drop the gun.
And is there not a phone in anywhere that anybody can give anyone a heads up with where these guys are or anything?
Yeah, there was a lot of cell phones.
I forgot about that.
There's a lot of cell phones. Well, not with us. You know, it was a lot of pagers were going off. A lot of kids had pagers, but we didn't. We didn't.
That's all you need. You're hiding under a desk and your mom's paging you as these guys are going by.
Well,
honey.
we put them on. We put them on the vibe.
Yeah, I wish Drew would do that once in a while in the studio. Yeah. All right. Well, wait a second. We're running late for break. This is it's tragic, but it's fascinating at the same time. And I have more questions for you guys. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take a little time out and we'll come back. Kind of second. I don't know about. I
in there because I think they were already in there because when we were sitting in the green room, we heard conversation between a couple of people. Personally, I thought I heard people saying, get down, drop. I thought I heard people saying, get down, drop the gun.
I think it's kind of interesting how this goof just completely ignored the bombshell she just dropped. She said they were already in there. Somebody was saying, drop the gun. So what kind of encounters were happening inside the school? And we're going to pick up with this next time on the next episode. I got way more deleted documents, unreleased FBI documents in the original FOIA. And we'll be going over potential encounters with either SWAT or other government personnel. They were already in the building during the shooting. A lot of mind-shocking stuff. But thanks again, Jen, for joining us. The one and only Jen Small-Thompson. And verifying a lot of information here and offering some more new information on quite a few things. Very, very helpful in piecing this together. Plenty more to come. If you want to help support the MindShock podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.